I have decided to keep Nicole and my thoughts in my own way. I'm going to eat steak, which Nicole loved, with Mom. Since Mom is also weakened by a cold, I think she will feel better after eating meat. Despite it being the day of Nicole's funeral, Jeff did not show up. I tried to contact him multiple times and finally got to talk to him, but he said something unbelievable. Who does he think caused Nicole's death? There's no use talking to Jeff, who lacks as a human being and as a parent. It only brings more pain and deepens my hatred towards Jeff. It's not just me who is boiling with anger. My father feels the same. Shall we send that guy to hell? While Jeff was absent, we sent Nicole safely to heaven. Next is Jeff's turn. I'll make sure to send him to hell and crush him. I am Kelly Baker, a housewife in my 30s. My daughter, Nicole, just turned 3. Hey Mom, I want to go to the big pool again. Ah, the pool? Yes, pools are fun. Our family consists of Nicole, my husband Jeff, and me. We love going out. Ever since Nicole was born, Jeff had been planning fun outings every week. However, since Nicole turned 3, the bond of our close-knit family has been gradually breaking. What, you want to go to that big pool again? No, let's go to the museum instead. Let's see the big dinosaurs. As I feared, Jeff hesitated to go to the pool. So, it's come to this, I sighed softly. Until recently, Jeff would have been delighted to take Nicole to the pool whenever she asked. But now his reaction was completely different. Lately, he has been ignoring Nicole's wishes and taking her to places he wants to go. Little Nicole easily changes her opinion to "I want to see the dinosaurs." If that's okay with Nicole, the museum is fine, but it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Are we not going to the pool anymore? When I asked quietly, Jeff nodded as if it were obvious. Yes, that's right. We went there often until you were 3 because it was indoors and enjoyable even in winter, but that's enough now. The reason we can't go to Nicole's favorite places anymore was that it was no longer worth it. The pool was free until age 3, but starting at age 4, there is a fee. Jeff always liked discounts and perks, even picking up free pocket tissues handed out on the street, and sometimes he even went back and forth to get multiple ones. He also chose restaurants where coupons could be used, and even though he really wanted to eat sirloin steak, he usually opted for chicken, which usually had a coupon. It might seem like we're financially tight, but since Nicole was born, his frugality has become extreme, and he's sometimes called stingy. Children are cost-effective. I want to give Nicole lots of experiences during this time. Jeff finds spots for children that are free or discounted and takes us there. We've experienced trips by airplane, visits to observation towers, aquariums, and zoos. Many memories have been made. I was grateful to Jeff. However, I never imagined that once Nicole turned 3 and the discounts no longer applied, he would suddenly stop taking us to such places. It was still good during early childhood. Even if we could no longer go to the beloved pool or amusement parks, there were still many fun outing spots and restaurants. But as she entered elementary school, the deals Jeff looked for almost disappeared. We're going to the park today, so get ready quickly. Mom, make lunch, okay? Hurry up, Jeff would say. The destinations were always free entry parks. It was hard on my heart that after taking us to so many places, it suddenly ended when she entered elementary school. I talked with Jeff after Nicole went to bed. Let's take Nicole to a place she wants to go at least once a month. I feel sorry for her, I suggested. Huh? That again? What do you think I've been doing all this time playing with Nicole? I've entertained her enough while it was cheap, so that's plenty. I've provided Nicole with a lifetime of fun, Jeff responded. Jeff was always stubborn, and there was no hope of compromise. Now that regular fees applied, it seemed like a big loss to Jeff. Previously, Jeff, who took us around a lot while discounts were available, seemed satisfied with that situation. Jeff's frugality was growing stronger day by day. Huh? Nicole, are you feeling bad? One day Jeff, who had just returned from work, said upon seeing Nicole lying in bed. Yes, she seems to have a fever, so I let her skip school. She just took her medicine and fell asleep. I replied and gestured for silence by putting a finger to my lips. In the next moment, I heard a surprising click of the tongue from Jeff, who was staring at Nicole's suffering face. "Don't go to the hospital just for a cold," Jeff said angrily. I quickly pulled Jeff away from Nicole. "Nicole is resting, so please be quiet," I said in a low voice. "Huh? Why do I have to listen only to what you say? You were the first to betray," Jeff retorted grumpily. Jeff stomped his feet, visibly upset. "I told you before not to go to the hospital," he said, and I was surprised. I remembered Jeff lamenting that he could no longer take Nicole to the hospital. This year, the medical subsidy Nicole had been receiving was no longer available. It was a big loss, but Jeff's income has increased, and he seemed somewhat satisfied, though confused. "Do you really mean that?" I was shocked. Hospital expenses and leisure were completely different. It was cruel to force a child to endure suffering because free medical care was no longer available. It's not something to react so dramatically to if it's just a cold. If taking medicine could make her feel better right away, it would be another story. But she can't even get out of bed yet. Is it worth going to the hospital just to pay high treatment costs? He pressured me. I lost my words to his force, and when commanded loudly, I had no choice but to obey. I had the desire to argue, but doing so would only provoke Jeff's anger further. Rather than trying to make Jeff understand, I just wanted him to be quiet. When I stayed silent, Jeff smugly boasted, "That's why I told you, unnecessary medical care isn't good. People like you, who don't think things through, are burdening the healthcare system. A cold will heal with rest, and injuries will heal naturally. Don't coddle Nicole," he asserted. Jeff sounded reasonable, but until last year, he was adamant that even a slight fever should be treated at the hospital right away. Naturally, when medical costs were free, it was more economical than buying over-the-counter medications. Well, there's something to be said for increasing salaries too. It's like working at a loss. How great would it be if I could adjust my salary just enough to not cover the cost of the kids' medical bills? What if I could secretly receive about half of my salary? He grumbled. That's not realistic, is it? I understand that much. It was just a joke. You don't get jokes, do you? You lack flexibility. You and the company are both so mediocre, Jeff said, sneering at me with contempt. When did it happen? When did our relationship stop being equal? By the way, why don't you start working too? You're just lazing around at home while Nicole is at school, right? Stop thinking about wanting to go out or take her to the hospital. Currently, I am a full-time housewife. When Nicole was born, Jeff changed jobs. When I quit my job due to my pregnancy, Jeff declared he would earn more, and at that time, he seemed very dependable. With his new job came an increase in income, and Jeff wanted me to stay at home. His words infuriated me, as if I'd been slacking off all this time. Well, you've got a gap in your work history, so you can only do simple jobs. But with that, you could earn enough for Nicole's steak. I'd love to go to an all-you-can-eat steak place again. I'm fine because I earn the money. Since I bring in the income, I decide how to spend it. It's too late to start working now. I could never match Jeff's income. I strongly felt he was looking down on me. Maybe Jeff's job change was a mistake. Although his income increased, his attitude became more domineering. I was the one who suggested the job change, but I knew he struggled in the new environment. Understood. I'll start working. This situation forced me back into work, but actually it suited me. Jeff strictly limited the money he allowed me to use, and he disliked it when I went out using the allowance I received from my father. So earning my own money would allow me to provide Nicole with enjoyable times freely. Despite my resolve to return to work, things didn't go as planned. Look, Nicole missed school again. Lucky you could take off work too. I'm jealous, he would say. Not long after I returned to work, Nicole caught a cold, and her class was closed due to influenza, among other troubles. I truly regretted causing trouble at my new workplace. Can you even earn enough for steak with that? Don't worry, I'll take her to the steak place and the pool. Aware of how distorted my face must have looked, Jeff made an unbelievable suggestion. Shall we go to the all-you-can-eat steak then? Let's invite my parents too. A sharp pain shot through my back teeth. I see your father often, but not so much my parents. Do something filial with your first paycheck, will you? Blood rushed to my head, and I was left speechless. I didn't want Nicole in the next room to hear her parents arguing. Such thoughts tighten around my heart. It's impossible. I don't want to go. Is that so? Well, it's okay. Dining out with 4 adults and a school-aged child at a steak place is quite expensive. It wasn't just about the money, or rejecting the idea of showing filial piety to Jeff's parents, that made me hesitant to go to the steak restaurant. I've begun to find Jeff himself unacceptable. Since realizing this, I've seriously considered divorce and plan to discuss it with my father. Right after making such a decision, Nicole caught a cold again. Raising a child often meant facing the reality that things don't go according to plan. Nicole's symptoms were a mild cough and a slight fever, but as I took care of her, I caught the infection and developed a fever myself. It was not uncommon for a parent who gets infected to end up bedridden, even if the child recovered quickly. Nicole, how are you feeling? By evening, Nicole's fever seemed to spike suddenly. Noticing her face was flushed, I touched her and found her temperature was abnormally high. Her fever is so high. She was still fine during the day. Nicole's eyes were unfocused, and my heart raced with the urgency to take her to the hospital right away. Unfortunately, today was the first day of a 3-day weekend, and it was late at night. What you want to take her to the hospital now? Isn't that an overreaction for just a mere fever? I tried asking Jeff for help, but as expected, his response was typical. We can go to the hospital after the holiday. Going now would mean paying holiday and late-night fees. Just sleep it off, it's just a cold. And was he really seeing what was happening with Nicole? Nicole wasn't complaining and seemed to be fading out of consciousness. Because of her sluggish response, I was desperate. Don't worry, I'll pay for all the treatment costs. Just please take her to the hospital. Please, I'm begging you. Normally, I'd carry her to the hospital myself, but alone, I wasn't strong enough. It was humiliating to plead to someone I was considering divorcing, but for Nicole's sake, nothing else mattered. All right, I understand. After much pleading, Jeff finally agreed. They'll probably just say it's just a cold at the hospital, give us some pills and send us home. Jeff might get angry, but I've already decided on divorce. I didn't care what he said anymore. If he complained about wasting money, I'd slam a $100 note on the table. Thinking this, I closed my eyes. Soon I heard hurried, thumping sounds. Too quick for a return from the hospital. The person who burst into the room was Jeff. Seeing the pallor of his face sent a chill down my spine. Something's wrong with Nicole. At that moment, it felt like everything was over. Nicole was only 7 years old. Such a young life, only 7, full of hope for the future, was no longer in this world. That night when Nicole had a high fever, Jeff did not go to the hospital. Pretending to listen to me, he judged on his own that it would be okay and let her go back to sleep. However, her condition changed rapidly, and she soon passed away. It was like a nightmare. Unable to comprehend the reality, I found no words to blame Jeff. While I was stunned, my father took care of various procedures, but it all felt so surreal. Despite the upcoming funeral for Nicole, I felt numb. Kelly, I know it's hard, but you need to pull yourself together. You understand it's an important day to send off Nicole, don't you? His words brought me back to reality. If Nicole were watching me from somewhere, showing her such a state wouldn't let her depart to heaven in peace. As a mother, I wanted to do everything I possibly could for her. Thank you, Dad. You're right. If I just cry, Nicole will be worried, I responded. That's right. Nicole's grandmother is also in heaven. She'll surely spend a wonderful time with her granddaughter, whom she is meeting for the first time. Also, try to contact Jeff. I can't get through to him no matter how many times I call, my father added. Jeff had taken Nicole's death very hard and has been shut away at his parents' home since the day of the incident. Even if he isn't here by my side, I'm not worried about it. My father seemed to feel a distance in our relationship as a married couple, but he was too tired from the grief of losing a grandchild and had no room to talk about it in detail. Just as my father said, I looked around and Jeff was nowhere to be seen. His parents weren't there either. I've thought over and over, if only we had gone to the hospital at that time. Jeff must be suffering too. He might be in such a state of mind that he can't come here. However, I felt too sad that Jeff, Nicole's father, wasn't here for her funeral. I called Jeff's phone multiple times, but it was just ringing endlessly. Finally, after several tries, the call connected. "Why are you calling so much? It's annoying." Jeff's voice was restless and clearly irritable. I was considering what to say to him, but I didn't need to worry about that. His tone was sharp, clearly frustrated. I raised my voice in response. "Jeff, where are you? It's about to start Nicole's funeral." My father noticed and approached, gesturing to ask if I was talking to Jeff. I nodded, and my father leaned in to hear Jeff's response. "Oh, but it's impossible for me to come." Jeff's words were a bit choked, but he continued without concern. "Mom has caught a cold and is in the hospital." "What?" Both my father and I couldn't hide our surprise. Unaware that my father was listening next to me, Jeff continued. "The funeral, huh? It's supposed to be a small ceremony, but your father will probably make a big deal out of it. Is that really for Nicole? Isn't it just for show? It's really a waste." My father was visibly shaken as if he had been deeply wounded. Jeff's words surely meant that he wasn't as depressed as we had thought. Having already given up on any expectations from Jeff, I was still shockingly unsettled by his actions. I lost the energy to call him to the funeral. "Do you ignore Nicole but rush to the hospital for your mother, huh?" I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic remark. "What? My mother is old. It's not the same as a child's cold that can heal with sleep," Jeff retorted. "But Nicole." I tried to continue, but Jeff interrupted loudly. "That's why I'm saying I'm reflecting too. It's hard for me too. It's not just you who's suffering." His words were laden with emotion. There's no point in saying anything to Jeff, who lacks as a human being and as a parent. He only causes pain and deepens my hatred for him. I'll keep Nicole and my thoughts in my own way. I'm going to eat steak with Mom, Nicole's favorite. Since Mom has caught a cold and is weak, I think the meat will make her feel better. Yeah, to avoid making waves, tell your father Jeff is mentally distressed and bedridden. My father patted my shoulder as I was dumbfounded by Jeff's words. My father shook his head silently, his expression saying, "Don't get involved anymore." My father took the mobile from me, and the call was immediately cut off. I wanted to curse at Jeff, but it was frustrating that I couldn't find the right words. I wanted to cry only for Nicole, but I couldn't stop my tears of anger towards Jeff. "You don't need to cry for that man. First, let's properly send off Nicole, and then we can really make him cry." I could feel my father's anger burning behind him like a flame. That was when I finally understood. I didn't need to bear the grief of losing Nicole and the anger towards Jeff alone. Even without Jeff, we were able to send Nicole safely to heaven. "Shall we send that guy hello?" Next was Jeff's turn. "I'll make sure to send him to hell and crush him." After taking proper bereavement leave, Jeff returned to work from his parents' place. Slightly hunched and dragging his feet heavily, yet he forced a smile on the right half of his face. A father, grieving the loss of his daughter, trying desperately to look forward, would seem valiant to anyone who didn't know better. "I'm sorry for suddenly taking time off. Ha." Jeff apologized to everyone as soon as he returned to his department. His forced laughter somehow seemed painful. His colleagues were also unsure how to interact with him, and the atmosphere became awkward. Sorry for being off for so long," Jeff said to a colleague near the window as he walked to his seat. Was everything okay with work?" "I'll make up for the time off," he said with forced cheerfulness as he sat down. The employees looked uneasy and confused about how to respond to him. Jeff mistakenly thought their awkward glances were out of sympathy. "Ha, sorry to worry you. As you can see, I'm fine. So, don't look so gloomy. Let's get back to work," he said, clapping his hands to signal the restart of work. Jeff was the department head, having risen rapidly in the ranks within just 7 years after switching jobs. He appeared to be a commendable leader who behaved confidently even in tough situations. Boss, I stammered a junior employee. Jeff smiled briefly at the concern shown by his colleagues but soon dropped his shoulders, smiling sadly. It's okay, don't worry. I'm fine now. It's really sad about the child, but the illness couldn't be helped. My wife and I are both in our 30s, there's still hope. The best way to overcome grief is to welcome a new life. For that, I need to work hard and earn money. Let's focus on our work, he continued. No matter how well Jeff played the role of a good father or boss, his words lacked sincerity. He was completely oblivious to why the mood was so somber. Seeing this, I stood up. Hey Kelly, why are you here? Jeff exclaimed in surprise. While Jeff wallowed in self-pity, I had been quietly observing his actions from the corner of the room. He was looking down, filled with guilt. And no wonder, since Nicole's death, we hadn't faced each other properly. Jeff had fled to his parents' home, avoiding any contact with me. Please leave this place. If my wife intrudes like this, it will be hard for everyone to concentrate on their work, Jeff said in a low voice. I responded calmly. Why should I leave? I am entitled to be here just as much as anyone else. Being an employee, there shouldn't be a problem wherever I am. Jeff bit his lip. In reality, I also worked at the same company as Jeff. Because he had been avoiding it, I had stayed away from his department until now, but there was a reason I stood here today. Actually, Jeff, you are the one who should leave. Your presence here is a hindrance to work. What? Jeff looked up in surprise, his face meeting mine. His face, which I hadn't seen in a long time, looked perfectly healthy, without a trace of fatigue. You've been fired, to put it simply. Jeff, you no longer have a place in this company. Please leave now. Well, what? Fired? Why? You don't have the right to decide that. Jeff's face trembled with shock. His voice cracked, increasing his pitiful appearance. Just then, the door opened and a person walked in. I have the authority to fire you. It was my father. Jeff, somehow sensing this moment would come, collapsed weakly. My father spoke calmly, yet his voice was cold and slow. You are fired. Jeff felt the gravity of those words and turned pale. Indeed, both Jeff and I worked for the company that my father ran. My mother had passed away before I got married, and I had only my father who always prioritized work. Perhaps that was just the right amount of distance for Jeff. Occasionally, when the three of us, my husband, father, and I met, my father would always tell me, Jeff is a good pillar of support for the family. He's also doing well at his job. It's important to respect and support each other moving forward. Jeff conveniently interpreted this to mean, as the head of the household, I deserve respect. But what my father really meant was, both spouses are struggling daily with work and parenting, and they should appreciate and support each other. My father had loved my mother deeply, sharing household chores actively. I'm worried about your hands getting rough, so I'll do the dishes, he would say, always taking charge of cleaning the dishes. If you didn't know this side of my father, it's understandable if he seemed at least like the stereotypical strict parent of the past. Jeff believed he had inherited the mistaken belief from my father that men are superior. He thought he was unconditionally supported simply because he was a man. He could be overbearing towards me at times, but as long as he behaved well in front of my father, he thought that was enough. However, reality was not so forgiving. You are no longer needed. Suddenly getting fired by the man he believed in, Jeff couldn't accept the reality. He avoided my father's stern gaze and looked around, but no colleague offered him a sympathetic look. Jeff had thought they were sympathizing with him, but he was completely mistaken. His firing had already been notified to the entire company. Jeff had not doubted that his seat was still there, so the shock when he learned the truth was profound. This can't be. Cornered, Jeff trembled and choked on his words. It seemed he might make an excuse or apologize, but unexpectedly, he took a defiant stance. This is wrongful termination. Kelly has lied to everyone and made me out to be the villain. Jeff began to argue passionately, tears in his eyes. To distract from the pain of losing Nicole, you sacrificed me. Nicole's sudden illness was beyond anyone's control. Why am I made out to be the villain? We both lost a child. You are not the victim. Jeff repeated his words vehemently, out of breath. No matter how loudly he shouted, my heart was unmoved. Yes, I am not the victim. The real victim is Nicole. I had already discussed this fact with my father. I had no intention of explaining the details to the people at work, but since Jeff brought up the topic himself, I had no choice. Nicole was suffering from a high fever, and I begged you to take her to the hospital. But you refused because you wanted to save on medical costs. You abandoned Nicole over a small amount of money. If you had taken her to the hospital sooner, maybe Nicole might have. The meeting room started to buzz. It's not true. It's not my fault. It was night, and it was during a 3-day weekend. Going to the hospital for just a fever would have been a nuisance. Jeff desperately tried to justify himself. However, this backfired. Jeff was known for having a good public image. He used to talk about how tired he was after taking Nicole out, but it was worth it for his child's smile after the weekend. He even said he had taken her to the hospital before for a mild fever or minor injuries. Given his family-oriented nature, his excuse that it was just a fever was hard to believe. Thinking that he actually abandoned his own child deepened the contempt others felt for him. The trust Jeff had built up at work was beginning to crumble. In a state of despair, Jeff was extremely agitated. But, I didn't think Nicole was in serious condition, and to fire someone from the company over one mistake is cruel. It's an unjust dismissal using power. I'm a victim too. Certainly unforgivable mistakes do exist. However, the dismissal I carried out was not based on personal feelings. Even if Jeff played the tragic hero, everyone here knew the truth. They knew he missed his daughter's funeral, which should have been most important to him. Colleagues had attended Nicole's funeral and had questioned his absence. If he truly was deeply grieving, perhaps his absence could have been forgiven, but what was the reality? People at work saw you. They saw you eating happily at a steak restaurant on the day of the funeral. Jeff had gone to eat steak with his mother. He had said so over the phone, but I had thought it was a joke. However, after the funeral, people from work had spotted Jeff at the steak restaurant. They reported it to my father and me, saying they couldn't believe it. I felt ashamed and pathetic to think that such a person was my husband. No, what are you talking about? That's a mistake. I've been too upset to eat. I couldn't possibly eat steak. But that action proved his irresponsibility. There was no need for sympathy. Really, that's strange. Then what is this receipt? The receipt shown to Jeff at that moment had been submitted to the accounting department. You tried to pass it off as a business expense, but that's not possible. This isn't from a lunch with a client, right? And it's from the day of Nicole's funeral. As Jeff approached to snatch back the receipt, my father firmly held his shoulder. Jeff almost raised his fist but restrained himself when he noticed the stares around him. Jeff, the accounting staff have found personal receipts you've been submitting as expenses. They couldn't stand the guilt and reported it. There were many suspicious receipts, but no one dared to confront you, the future president. My father confronted Jeff emotionlessly. As a relative of the company's owner, you've taken quite a few liberties. It's truly disappointing. I had high hopes for you, Jeff, but I cannot entrust the company to someone who commits such fraud. No, I can't even keep employing you. There's no choice but to fire you. These words weighed heavily on Jeff, and his legs began to tremble. Jeff had been funding his personal dining and shopping with company money. There might have been some fun times, but the cost was immensely high. What's this, being accused one-sidedly? A couple of dollars for steak won't hurt anybody. What a stingy company. Fine, I'll resign. Jeff muttered bitterly. No matter how confident Jeff tried to appear, it was pathetically comical. The only looks he received were those of pity. Unable to stand the loneliness, Jeff shouted with a red face. That's enough. I'm leaving. He might have thought he was strong, but it was more like a child's tantrum. As he started to leave the room with heavy footsteps, I called out to him. Leaving? To where? Jeff turned around, his eyes visibly angry. To my own home, of course. He answered as if it were obvious. It seemed he planned to drown his sorrows in drink at home. If that's the case, you might as well go back to your parents' house. Our home doesn't exist anymore. Huh? His eyes blinked rapidly. His face filled with anger changed to a ridiculous expression in an instant. I sold our house, so you can't go back there. What? Why would you do something like that without asking? That house was where we had lived, and it was actually purchased by my father. The house is in my name. I'm free to sell it, aren't I? Jeff's face turned red with anger. What? But to sell the house I lived in without telling me. That house is filled with precious family memories. Hearing him use the word family irritated me. It was unforgivable for him to use the precious family he had destroyed as an excuse now. I can no longer live in that house filled with memories. Your superficial kindness can't possibly understand my feelings. Indeed, the house was filled with precious memories, as Jeff said. Because of that, every corner of the house reminded me of Nicole. Living normally in the same room without Nicole, who was no longer in this world, was impossible for me. But I have rights too. As Jeff clung to his claim, I presented him with a document. Let's get a divorce. What? I no longer need a future with you. Rights are not granted to those who do not wish for their child's happiness and turn away from responsibility. Compared to the life Nicole lost, Jeff's lost job, future position, social credit, and property were insignificant. Jeff should be grateful just for being healthy, yet he failed to understand even that and continued to be indignant. Why? You're taking everything from me. Do you enjoy this? There's no joy in this. I dismiss his pleas coldly. Overwhelmed by excitement, Jeff left the room without any shame. Later, he would painfully realize the consequences of prioritizing money. After Nicole passed away, he initially felt depressed and seemed to feel some responsibility, but he soon fled to his parents' home for self-preservation. That was still forgivable until then. However, at the refuge of his parents, it seems he received astonishing encouragement. Hey, what about Nicole's life insurance? We signed up for insurance before as a social obligation, right? I thought we wouldn't need Nicole's part, but well, you couldn't refuse it, could you? What's happening with it now? A few days after the divorce, he contacted me to bring up such a topic. Do you want the insurance money? When I asked him directly, Jeff answered with a laugh. Yeah, if I can get something, I definitely want it. If I don't say anything, you might monopolize it all, and that would be a bit much. I was so appalled that I was lost for words. As I remained silent, Jeff began to outline his plan. Because of you, our family has suffered great damage. Originally, the plan was to have my parents move in to help you since you were weak, but then you went and sold the house. I hadn't been aware such a plan was underway, but now I feel it was right to have let the house go. Mom was really looking forward to living together, but you sold the house, divorced, and on top of that, lost your job. It's terrible what you've done. You won't need to give me severance or compensation, so please, at least give me the insurance money. His words conveyed not only anger towards me, but also desperation. Seeing through his desperation, Jeff tried to elicit sympathy by showing how cornered he felt. Actually, my parents' house is a rental. I was shocked by being suddenly fired, so I decided to settle down at home for a bit. But then, the landlord showed up demanding payment of overdue rent. It seems his parents hadn't been paying the rent. Older couples are often treated with leniency, but with the addition of their son Jeff, the demands on them became stricter. How am I supposed to pay overdue rent without a job? But you have savings, right? I retorted mercilessly, but I could hear Jeff snorting. But you know, even if I pay the rent, I've been told we'll be kicked out, and the savings alone won't cover moving expenses. The savings were divided in half due to the divorce, and although I had forced him to return the money he had dishonestly acquired from the company, I avoided suing him. Despite this, he should still have about $10,000 left. Also, the house is rented, but my dad had made alterations to it himself. After paying the rent, we also need to pay for repairs. Fixing the walls he removed and the holes he made in the attic is going to be tough, right? $10,000 will be gone in no time. Huh. He was desperately pleading, but I could not feel any more emotions. Incidentally, the interior of the in-laws' house was quite unique and attractive. I was surprised to discover that the house was a rental property and that they had made unauthorized alterations. While the surface was attractive, it symbolized Jeff's poor essence. But it was clear that Jeff was raised by his parents. They too were self-centered, and their unreasonable behavior stood out. That all three of them together in a hopeless state would be preferable. By chance, I was the beneficiary of Nicole's life insurance. Jeff had been sarcastic when I couldn't refuse signing up for it at the time. As a result, he couldn't touch that money. So you want to split Nicole's life insurance. I contracted it, paid the premiums from my savings, and I am the beneficiary. There's no way this money is going to you. I ended the conversation quickly and hung up. Calls from Jeff continued for a while, but it seemed he didn't have the courage to come to the company. Maybe he still had some sense of shame, or perhaps he didn't want to tarnish the memories of the times he was respected. Eventually, the calls from Jeff stopped abruptly. According to a colleague who heard through the grapevine, his parents' house was now back on the rental market. They had settled the unpaid rent and paid huge sum for repairs before leaving. Knowing this, thoughts like "I wonder how he's doing," or "he must be struggling" did not occur to me. So that's what happened. That was all. His present and future were irrelevant to me and of no interest. Even though I had impulsively cut ties with Jeff, the pain in my heart was still sharp. So the sense of liberation I expected after ending the relationship with him wasn't as profound as I had hoped. "Hey Kelly, why don't you take a break and go somewhere with me for a change?" That suggestion came from my father one day. Since the divorce, I had moved back home and continued working as usual, and life felt unchanged. But my father seemed to have noticed that I was feeling down. "I understand your pain, Kelly. As a parent, nothing is more important than one's child. I know you always wished for Nicole's happiness." My father's warm voice soothed my heart. "As a parent, I too want to see you happy and smiling." That made me realize I am Nicole's mother and also my father's daughter. When I looked up at my father, the warm smile I knew from childhood was there. "Kelly, let's spend some quality time together." "Yes, let's do that, Dad." What could heal my heart was indeed my father and the presence of family.